fucking keys, you fucking cocksucker motherfucker!
Sadistic Penguin Studios presents the At the Show podcast with Tom Yumper Garcia.
Okay, you people sit tight, hold the fort, and keep the home fires burning. And if we're not back by dawn, call the president.
And Tony Chalsa Burt.
I don't know this industry jargon, YP, MP, whatever, okay? All I know is that I cannot get a record contract. We cannot get a record contract unless I take these tapes.
It's almost time, so grab a drink, get your popcorn ready, and join the film discussion with two guys from Chicago talking movies.
Welcome back to At the Show, episode 3 of season 4. Yes, it's season 4. We are here today. I'm Tom Yumper Garcia, and I'm with my other co-host, Tony Chalsa, aka Sugar Baggy, Burt, or Burton from last episode. How you doing, my man?
Good. How are you, my man?
I am good. I am very happy it's the weekend. I know you told me that in the pre-show. Work's been sucking, man.
It sure has, but you know what's crazy? Within 2 seconds ago, I ran off a camera and my daughter went number 2 into the bathroom for the first time.
Nice.
And it's been a big celebration here in the last 5 minutes. So I'm now doubly excited here to just deliver the greatest show.
That's always the awesome feeling when your daughter or like my son used the bathroom.
Yes.
First time I was like, yes.
It's because everything else has been going really well. It's just been number 2, you know, it's been like when she goes to sleep. So great.
Sweet.
Amazing.
All right. Way to go. Little Bert. So today we have a great action-packed show for you today. We're going to be going into one of our favorite movies, The Usual Suspects, doing a deep dive in development, also the film breakdown and fan and critical reception of the film. And also we have a special segment with the one and only, the great Mailman Jack, who's a little upset that I made him small in our promo poster by putting his head on the Kevin Pollak character. But we're really happy to have him on and see him coming forward for next couple shows in the future. So we'll see how that goes. And yes, Shankster, there will be spoilers, unfortunately. I mean, the movie is about to turn 30 years old, so if you haven't seen it, I'm sorry. But this can be an introduction to it to make you maybe want to watch it. But with that, Tone, let's get into our first segment of what we have been watching.
That's a meme. And also, what were you just watching?
So, Tone, what you been watching this week, my man?
This week, okay, in the middle of the week, I was at home, put on an e-learning day, and I watched this Body of Lies, Ridley Scott, Leonardo DiCaprio, and one Russell Crowe, and it's been a while. I think I've watched it maybe once, but I was in the mood to see some Leo, and I like Leo when he's vulnerable, and in this movie, he's very vulnerable as like a CIA agent, and Russell Crowe's just putting them all over the place, and I enjoy the movie quite a bit. You ever see this movie?
I've seen it one time. Can't really say it left a really big impression on me.
It didn't for me either. And I'll be frankly honest. Some movies I have to watch like 4 or 5 or 6 for it to do something for me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why. Maybe it was because I was sitting there doing something else and it was in the background. It was a good in the background movie for myself. Ridley Scott, of course, always does good work. I think it was more because of just I focused in on Leo's performance. Russell is Russell, and you know he's okay, but Leo does a good job in it. And the other one I watched was Grandma's Boy. After as stated, a long week. I have not watched Grandma's Boy in over 14 years, and movie still holds up. Movie is hilarious. Lots of good one-liners, and my favorite in the movie is from Everybody Loves Raymond, Doris Roberts. She's just amazing. The scene where he sleeps over at her house the first time and she pretends to be the talking pictures. Honestly, I'm not a big, like, even in real funny movies, I don't like laugh out loud really a lot, but I was laughing out loud at some of these scenes because Katie had never seen it before, and it's always funny to watch a movie that nobody's ever seen before like this with them. So, good movie. Sandler's seen all the other people that everyone but Sandler's in it. You know, it's not bad.
Well, it's with Sandler's best friend, Alan Covert, and Peter Dante. Those are two of his best friends. Yeah, when that movie came out, I didn't see it in theater, but one of my buddies had the movie on bootleg, and he gave it to me, and I watched that movie like all the time. I think my wife's seen it too. It's pretty hilarious. Joel David Moore, who plays JP, I think steals the show just as JP. Nick Swatson's hilarious in there. That's like one of his biggest roles. And I think even like going down to the future, like currently, he actually came out and said he knew that movie was going to bomb, but when it went to like the DVD and VHS rentals, movie was blowing up. Like it made so much money just off that because people loved it. It's like one of those cult classic movies that still holds up to today. So hilarious pick, man.
Those are really just my favorite, man, of those cult classics.
yeah, it's a great movie. And then Lisa Cardinelli's in it. It's a hilarious movie. Really good work by everybody who did it.
What have you been watching, my man?
So I watched two films. One is my go-to whenever I just want to have that on in the background when I'm doing some work and like basically to turn and laugh. I'm doing something, and that's Heavyweights. I'm a huge fan of this film. Me and my brother were huge fans of it when it came out. We actually had the VHS. We watched it all the time when we had a chance to. This is the birth of the Dwight Goodman character from Dodgeball with Ben Stiller. He plays Tony Perkis, which is hilarious. You have Kenan Thompson when he's a kid in this movie. You have the guy from the Goonies, Goldberg, when he's a kid. Aaron Schwartz, he's also from the Mighty Ducks. And this film was actually made by the Mighty Ducks writer, Stephen Brill, who directed it. He also wrote actually Little Nicky and Ready to Rumble. So it's a hilarious film. I love it. If you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. It's about kids who go to a fat camp, and Tony Perkis takes it over, basically a workout freak, and it's just shenanigans from there. Have you seen this movie?
Oh yeah, it's as you stated before, Ben Stiller nails the role. I personally like this one a little bit more than Dodgeball, even though Dodgeball gets a little bit more play. And I think it's because I'm always a big sucker for what came first. Mm-hmm. And I think just the movie, as you stated, the overall premise, it's something I remember exactly when it came out too. And, it's good. It's really good.
Dude, so many quotable lines in this. Me and my brother still do it. Like when he goes, Uncle Tony's going to show you a little demo, like little things like that. The part where he goes, I eat success for breakfast with skim milk. Like we just say stupid things, but it's hilarious to me. It still holds up. And then the other movie I saw was the 2005's The Island, which is directed by Michael Bay and based off a book of the same name. It stars Ewan McGregor and Scarlett Johansson. My wife has never seen it. She was looking for a movie the other day to watch, and I'm like, have you ever seen a sci-fi action movie called The Island? She's like, no. We watched it, and it's, quick synopsis, basically about cloning. And these clones are told they're going to go to the island when in reality they're being harvested for their organs and skin. Yeah, they're rich donors. It's actually a really good film put together. It doesn't get enough, when you talk about sci-fi action movies, it doesn't really get a lot of talk about. Nobody really talks about it, which is surprising. I know Ebert loved it, and when I first saw it, I loved it. Have you seen this one as well?
It's kind of a little bit like the Body of Lies one. I haven't actually sat down and been a long time and watched it all the way through, but I'm a sucker for Ewan. You could pretty much sign me up for anything with Ewan McGregor, and I'll watch it. And of course, Scarlett Joe, of course, too. So just based upon you saying that, I'm definitely going to watch it again, and I'll check back in with you.
For sure, man. Shankster says I didn't care for it. Yeah, man. It's everybody's opinion's different. Yeah. I liked it a lot. I'm also kind of into Blade Runner, all those films as well. So it's kind of remind me of it. Not quite as good, but it was a fun vehicle. But yeah, if it's not for everybody. But that's what we have been watching. That's our picks for the week. Let us know what you've been watching at the show pod on Twitter or X or whatever it's called. Or you can tweet us out at Lil Yumper or at the Sugar Baggy on Twitters or whatever it's called now. But with that, Mr. Chelsea, we have a very important and very special guest coming up next for a big segment that we planned. So when we started to do the reformatting of the show, I had in my mind I'm going to get two people on. One was Roxy to review movie she's never seen. And the other was to get Mailman Jack. Now, for you who don't know who Mailman Jack is, he's a very popular guy on the Twitters. Probably one of the nicest people I've ever met in person and on Twitter. He's a cool dude, loves music, and he also loves a lot of obscure films and things that you never heard of. He'll just mention to you, send you pictures of it, and you're like, wow. And it's good conversation from it. So with that, we have a Mailman Jack segment that we're going to be doing with him every other show. And let's get to introducing Mailman Jack in here. Mailman Jack, how are you doing, my man?
I'm good. How are you?
Very, very good, man. Thank you so much for doing this. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Glad to. Very glad to.
So, Mailman Jack, the title of your segment is called Special Delivery. So what do you got for us today, my man?
All right. You asked me to tell about some movies that I like that people might not have seen. So, 1992 classic. Oh, I have a prop.
Oh, Jack's bringing props.
A VHS copy of Shakes the Clown, starring Bobcat Goldthwait. He wrote it, directed it, starred in it. He's the trifecta in this. I love this movie. It's very dark and it's hysterical. When you asked me about this and I started doing a little research and was watching maybe some current reviews of it, it's dark. Let's just say that. And some of the jokes, I don't think a lot of people might not appreciate, but like it is what it is. It's about an alcoholic clown. And have you guys seen it?
Yeah, so I actually did. I actually bought it to check it out again. And just like a little background on the film, like you said, directed and starring Bobcat Goldthwait. Also stars Julie Brown, Paul Dooley, Tom Keeney, with special appearances by Robin Williams, Adam Sandler, Blake Clark, Kathy Griffin, and even the great Florence Henderson.
The opening scene, it's hysterical. I mean, maybe a couple jokes in the movie go a little, maybe they take it a little too far and they kind of lose it, but I think the movie is hysterical. And the cast is tremendous.
Yeah, it's a pretty like all-star comedic cast in there.
Right.
Movie is as you stated, hilarious. I can remember the very first time was in 7th grade. A friend was like, yeah, 7th grade. Someone's like, my friend, he's like, you ever see Shakes the Clown? And I'm like, no, it's about an alcoholic clown. And now I look back at that in 7th grade as some kids like, it's about an alcoholic clown. And like, oh, he's telling me about it. Like he knew what an alcoholic clown was. Fast forward to about 10 years ago, I was out in California at Amoeba Records. It's a huge record place out there. And I found it on DVD. And I'm like, I slapped my money down because I had never seen it. And well, of course, the VHS is like gold that you have right there. But that's amazing. But great, hilarious movie.
For sure.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, his girlfriend is downtown Julie Brown. And I guess like in doing a little research, I guess she sprung that speech impediment on him at the first day of filming.
She sounds like Betty Boop.
Right. And Kathy, she's the bowler.
Yeah, the bowler.
Oh my God, I was just watching it and like he's having this scene where he's kind of trying to make up with her and kissing her butt a little, and she starts talking about bowling, and you could see him just drifting.
Yeah, he just stares away. So like this is funny to me because my introduction to Bobcat was the Police Academy movies as Zed.
Right.
That's the first time I've ever seen it. I know he after watching that, my dad told me he was a big comic at the time, stand up. Of course I was like young, like 9, 10 when this stuff, so I wouldn't really, get into that kind of part of comedy until later. But the first time I saw this film was actually on Cinemax. It came on at 11 o'clock on a night. I think me and my dad were just watch. That's what we used to do when we sit at the house when it was like a weekend day in the summer, and it happened to be on. He's like, "Have you ever seen this movie?" I'm like, "No," and I watched it. I'm like, "What the hell is going on?" Because it's like it tries to take like place of like rival. I mean, it makes you think of like not Streetcar. What's the film that just came out? Tone with that Scorsese just directed.
The not Killers of the Flower Moon.
No, the musical.
Oh. We'll get back to that.
So it's kind of like Grease. It was kind of like a clowns with Grease.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's Palookaville. The rodeo clowns. It's wild. It's just, you could imagine what goes through. I mean, like, he made a couple movies after this. What was, that kind of got a little more attention, but this one was. I mean,
it flies under the radar. I mean, it's not, and that's what it makes it a great pick for the segment, is that it's one that it needs to be known because, well, Bobcat Goldthwait is ridiculously hilarious. My introduction was One Crazy Summer. When he dresses up as Godzilla and destroys the town in that movie. That's classic. Or Hot to Trot, where John Candy does the voice of the horse. That's a classic too. But this one, great, just like all the others.
I was thinking of Spielberg. I'm sorry, Jack.
That's what I thought you did.
West Side Story, yeah.
I didn't want to say. That's why I didn't want to.
Yeah,
do it. Like, musical Scorsese.
Yeah, Spielberg.
Yeah.
The Rolling Stones.
West Side Story. Yes.
What was that? I kind of enjoyed Bobcat Goldthwait's weird little feud with Jerry Seinfeld over the last several decades. I enjoy that he's the one that just got under Jerry's. Oh God. Hey, I don't know. Hey, when you asked me about this, that was the first movie that popped into my head. And hey, if you want me back again, I got the second one.
Oh, for sure, Jack, for sure.
love these movies. Love them.
It was like, he's like, you're like sending me a text, and it was like, oh yeah, I got a movie. Yeah, it'll be Shakes the Clown.
Shake the Clown.
Oh God.
So
like Robin Williams is in it, but he's not. What's that called when it's not his name in the credits?
He's uncredited.
He's uncredited. It's his name in it is Marty Fromage.
Yeah.
But just the scene with him.
My name is Chuck. He?
So that scene, that's towards the end of the movie, is probably one of the funniest scenes when he, come on, Chuck, get on your horse, Chuck. Now we're going to swim like bacon, Chuck. Chuck, are you a clown? You're really starting to piss me off here. Like, Robin was good in everything he did. Everything was ad-libbed in there too, which I thought was hilarious.
You could tell they're ad-libbing the heck out of this movie.
And it's like, at first when you watch it, you see it's kind of crude humor. Like, like you said, first scene, the kid is trying to take a pee and he pees on his face. It's just so random, but it grows on you. And to the point, Jack, you say people haven't heard of this movie. There's actually some trivia saying that Scorsese, which is probably why I was thinking about this, Tony, was asked about this movie. And he said, it's a very dark movie. It's a real movie. It's like, and the guy half-assed it. Well, it's kind of a Citizen Kane of clown movies.
I've heard it before.
He goes,
it's good.
It's wild. It's just, and then like you're even like, if you go back and like what's her name, LaWanda Page, on Esther from Stanford Son, and who's sitting next to her, right? That's Milton Berle.
Yeah.
And Clownman, and they're both in, and she has one of the best lines in the whole movie, and that was totally ad-libbed.
The movie is great, man.
It's
it's really good.
I recommend it. I mean, it's not it's not what it is what it is. If you like dark comedies.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you just like dark comedies, it's one that you need to
mimes. That one scene they're driving and they pull over and beat
you like Adam Sandler. Check this movie out. He's great in it.
Yeah, it's one of his first roles too.
Yeah, he's good.
It's just, you could just tell who he's friends. It must have been like all his friends.
Yeah, so Bobcat was best friends with Tom Kenny, who plays Binky, and Binky
Great
is
role.
actually the voice of SpongeBob SquarePants.
Right.
Yeah, so they were
Great role. His role in the movie.
Is
Yes.
a scumbag.
He's
Yeah,
awesome
it's a scumbag.
with the hair.
Yeah, so they were best friends growing up. He's also was very close with Robin, which is why Robin was in the movie. And Adam Sandler was an up and coming comic, so like he used a lot of his pull to get these comics in this movie. Kathy Griffin, another comic.
Kathy Griffin, right? And it was just I was looking up stuff and found some old video of him on Arsenio when the movie came out. Plug in the movie, and even Arsenio's like, "How'd you get Robin?" He's like, "Oh," and he's talking in that voice, hysterical. And he's like, "How'd you get Robin?" He's like, "Well, he's uncredited," and he's like, "It's really sad because I guess." He was like, this movie's coming out on the day that they'll be voting on when the Oscars are going to come out. And Robin's probably up for one. So maybe this might hurt him a little.
Yeah.
It was really good.
Brian says second best clown film after Vulgar. Vulgar is not that type of funny clown film like this one, but I would say so as well. So Jack, which character in this film is your favorite?
Oh, I gotta go with I Julie Brown. She's awesome in it.
I was bowling.
Right. And I love the Nixon. What the Nixon, and she's so good at, and like I said, the fact that she sprung her voice on them the day they started filming.
Doing
it was so good. And actually Binky's really good in it because he's such a scumbag. And then you're thinking when you watch it again, this is SpongeBob.
Yeah, it's totally crazy. Like
in the rodeo clowns. Oh my God. There's so much going on in this movie. And when you go, it's dark. It really is. And I think, if you go into it just with the right frame of mind, you'll probably like it as much as I do. I hope.
So my wife says she wants to check it out. The cover looks like Bozo. It's not Bozo, but
laugh.
It's funny though.
He wants to. It was kind of, and then they have the intervention, and then you're thinking about the whole Christopher Sopranos intervention, and it's just.
It makes me laugh because in the scene, like when he goes to the in the beginning of the movie, when he's going to his gig and he goes to the gas station and the attendant comes out and he says he's to the bathroom and she goes, and when he's in there, the attendant's telling the other people around them, this town used to be a lot different before clowns moved in. And there's like a bunch of clowns that live there. They just walk around in their clown makeups, like
right,
not like regular clothes. Like
it makes you think what was going through this guy's head when he wrote this. And Palookaville, and rodeo regular clown, and then the dad at the birthday party he went to, Tim Kazurinsky.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just a wild ride, and it gets a little, kind of drags a little, but it really. Then you said at the end with the scene with Robin Williams with the mime workshop,
That was worth the film itself, to be honest with you.
Just see it, right?
And I'm gonna shove it up.
Love that.
Yeah, if you drop that hat again, Fred, I'm gonna shove it up your ass. And he's like, "Oh, come on, we're gonna get on our horse now."
Oh my God! Here's this teenage boy. What was it like? Teenage boy in puberty.
Yeah, yeah. We're puberty. Don't sorry, girls. Like that.
Oh my, yeah. Girls do something else. You could just. Robin Williams just brought so much to it. I remember even being at this. I saw this movie at the show, and we were like, "Oh my God, Robin Williams is in this!" It was wild. Oh, and then the way he was dressed, he had his underwear on the outside. Next time, wear the underwear on the inside, Chuck.
Yeah.
I want to know what religion you are.
Yeah, that it was just like a lot of funny one-liners. Has Mrs. Mailman seen this movie?
Oh, of course. VHS. Big fan is
Can't keep the secret from that. No.
people bought me the VHS.
That's awesome.
We actually the video store we bought it from. I think it's one of the last video stores that's actually still open. That's by our house.
There's still one open by your house over there?
You know what? More than anything, they have recording studios in there.
Gotcha.
And but it's still technically a video store.
Oh yeah.
If it wasn't for porn and bands wanting to record in there, they probably wouldn't be open.
There'd be nothing.
Oh, wow.
Nothing.
But it's still there. You know, I haven't been in there in decades, but it's still there and it's still open. But like I said, it's they have like recording studios but like I really do need to walk in there and think, are they still renting videos?
VHS are kind of coming back, Jack.
Hey, you might have a hot one right there on your you got one right there, man.
Exactly. That place has been, I mean, we bought our house a long time ago, almost over 20. That place has been here over 20 years. I mean, it's just there. It's at 104th and Kedzie. It's still open.
Awesome pick, Jack. Awesome pick.
Yeah, I mean, great, Graham. It excites me to see what's coming next, because when you dig in this deep on this, I could imagine just the coolness that's coming.
I might have to run a couple. Like I have one in mind, but like but then like I have a couple other things in mind. I'll just talk it over with you guys and see what you.
Yeah, for sure, man, for sure.
But one movie is actually. Like, how about that? Have you guys seen that? The preview for the Roadhouse movie that just came out?
Oh yeah,
yeah. That's a hot topic within our group chat and text. Yeah.
You know what? It seems weird. I would almost think after seeing it, they should have just made it like a standalone movie, and I think it would have had more of a buzz. The whole UFC back. You know,
yeah. They made a sequel to Roadhouse, like I think 20 years later.
With the guy from Swim Fan.
Yeah. So I mean, they've been trying to recapture because Roadhouse. To be real, Roadhouse is not a great film in terms of like acting, but to me, it totally screams 80s. It got Patrick Swayze, and it's like one of those most quotable like action-packed movies that I like.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And a lot of people resonate with because it's so corny that it's great. Like the acting is definitely not going to win an award, but Sam Elliott, you have Patrick Swayze in there. You got Terry Funk for the wrestling fans. But yeah, I don't know about this new movie coming out. I know Matt Zawalski, Father Zoe, tweeted at us with this and said, "What's going on with this?" I'll watch it to see how it is, then but I don't have high hopes for it.
But like. I mean, they more or less told you the plot of the whole freaking movie on this whole on that preview that they showed, and it looks entertaining. I'll watch it.
Yeah, I mean, it seems people are like, don't be surprised over remakes, and I'm like, I understand that, but like for me, there's certain movies I don't think should be remade. That's just my opinion. Roadhouse is probably one of them. I know. People have talked about trying to get Zemeckis to release Back to the Future. I think Back to the Future just should stay with with what it is. White Man Can't Jump was just remade. Some people liked it, some people didn't. I'm kind of like, I don't know why you remake it. I watched it; it was okay. I prefer the original. That's just me. But I guess remakes have always been a thing in Hollywood. Roadhouse has carried a lot of weight in terms of it's quotable, it's been parodied. So I'm guessing they're trying to make a buck off it, even though it's on Amazon.
Right. One of the movies I want to talk to you guys about is I think it was remade and it was bad, but like the original, it holds up, and some things just should not be remade, but some things do get remade. They're actually look at Star is Born, but
I grew up in a house where my dad was like, "There's all these old sci-fi movies they could remake that would look awesome with graphics. What are they making this crap for?" And that's what he would say. And I'd be like, well, you're kind of right. But I don't think the masses want to see Fiend without a face, and put $200 million into it. I would, you would, but it would look cool. But what they're doing is trying to get the money, and then they're trying to...
I mean, War of the Worlds was a remake, and it bombed bad.
It's big time. Like last week, you guys had Big Trouble in Little China, and I was telling you we've been rewatching John Carpenter movies. They Live, I think, would be kind of cool if they remade it. I don't know.
That one would be because I could see it playing a little bit, and you could make it a little bit more. And Roddy Piper's great in the movie, but he's not like you're replacing Kurt Russell and
right
for me at least. But people could be wrong about that.
Remakes of every Commando. I would totally watch that.
Yeah, I would. We'd be first in line. We'd all go. It'd be great.
But with that, Jack, so since we are talking about remakes, do you think a movie like Shakes the Clown could be made today?
No, I do not. No, I think, I mean, not that I want to sound like an old guy with it, like it would get woke or something. But like that whole scene when they started, you drink a little too much Shakes, and he's in the back seat. Hey, you guys want a beer? And he hands them the beer when they're driving.
Yeah, that stuff would
throwing up over the side of the car.
That's what makes
it's more crude humor than anything in the film, so I don't think it could be.
I don't think so. In a weird way, I mean, you saw a lot of it coming. What was in it? I think it could be made, no, I don't think so. I really don't. But like, hey, maybe Jerry Seinfeld would put some money behind it,
Good.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure he would.
And then a B would end up suing Shakes the Clown for all his money at the end.
There's a YouTube clip of him saying, do you like jazz? And every time he says it, it quadruples. So it goes over and over, and then it gets to like, it's like basically just like white noise, like. But yeah, it's pretty funny. But thank you so much, Jack, for this one. This is
thank you.
Great opener to your segment, and we hope to have you on in the future, my man.
Please.
Thanks for having me. I'm flattered that you thought of me when you thought of this.
Oh, you're the man, Jack. Do you have anything to plug, my man?
Me?
Yeah, you're Jack. Come on.
Oh, not really.
Always, honestly, most amazing musical content I've ever seen in the last 2 years is from my main man here, Mailman Jack. So check if you happen to be on there. He's always posting cool stuff.
I
mean, you just posted that Pearl J. It's you the other day. It's Billy Idol. It's and I'm staring at that at work, and I'm like, wow, this is amazing. And you've shared that with me a couple times, and I'm like, this is awesome.
My brother-in-law has an even better story because he was the one standing next to Billy Idol in that picture, and Billy Idol is pinching his ass as that picture was being taken.
I remember you told me that the first time.
Was like, Jack, were you grabbing my ass? And I'm like, he's like, who was? And I'm like, probably Billy. I wouldn't put it past him.
Jack, Brian says, plug the tamale lady.
Plug the what?
The tamale lady.
Tamale ladies, yeah. 59th, right outside Mr. Soze laundromat across the street. My favorite tamale ladies in the city. And the Oaxaqueña, is that the ones in banana leaf? Those are my favorite, but just the regular ones are good too. And what's that chocolate drink called? It's kind of like porridge. You know what I'm talking about. They got a big cooler full of it. That stuff's awesome. Chocolate.
Champorado?
Yeah, champorado. Correct. I can't roll my R's very well. But whatever that stuff is, that's like the nectar of the gods. I bring it home to my wife, and she's like, "Oh, thank you for bringing this home. I really don't want the tamales. Just give me that chocolate stuff."
Good stuff.
All right, yeah. best tamales are always outside of a laundromat. Best tamale ladies always outside of a laundromat. And they are their rain, shine, cold, hot, the heat. You know, they're if it's cold outside and you see that cart and no one's there, they're just inside the laundromat keeping warm. So go there and they'll come out.
All right, my man. Jack, thank you so much for coming on, my man. We will have you on again for sure.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you,
All
guys.
right.
Thank you.
Take it easy, brother.
Thank you.
Take it.
And that was Mailman Jack, a man who's never met a burrito he cannot eat or review. Be sure to check him out at Mailman Jack on Twitter. I love that segment because Jack is like I said, one of the nicest guys, and he's also very hilarious.
Very awesome.
Also, great cabs.
Yes.
What's up, Johnny? So with that, since we got with the Mailman Jack segment, we're going to get into our main event of the evening. Now, before we go into our movie, we just want to preface it and say there have been allegations that have come out against both director Bryan Singer and Kevin Spacey. We're not here to celebrate those people. Personally, I think they're pieces of shit for these allegations. As people, we're more looking at the art of the film from the 90s that we're looking at. So we're going to do a deep dive into that and celebrate the film itself and not really the people who played the roles. Although he was magnificent in the role as a person, we're not big fans of him. So we're just going to keep it into that general space of thought. Right, man?
Sounds good to me. That's exactly how I feel.
All right, man. So you ready to deep dive into this film?
Let's do it.
All right, let's go into the development.
In my thoughts, I use the technique of positive visualization.
So, and The Usual Suspects was a film released in 1995. It was directed by Bryan Singer, and the way he came up with the idea was him and his best friend at the time, Christopher McQuarrie. They had a film called Public Access, which was a 1993 film festival, Sundance Film Festival entry. The film would go on to win the Grand Jury Prize there, and he happened to meet Kevin Spacey at an after party who was attending the festival. Spacey actually went up to him and said that he loved the film and had been encouraging people to see it. And since he loved it so much, he's like, man, whatever you guys got going on next, I want to be in that film, without even knowing what they were going to do. He basically put himself up to say he'll star in it, which I think is pretty cool, to showing that he had praise for that film, which I thought was awesome. Before the script was even made, they asked Singer at the festival, hey, is there a film that you have in the works? And he's like, I guess it's a bunch of criminals who meet in a police lineup, which is what he got from a poster. And Christopher McQuarrie got that idea as well, for people meeting in a lineup that he saw a poster at work. And he's like, man, that would be a really good movie. And as far as the name actually comes from one of the great all-time films, Casablanca. And the line actually is this.
Round up the usual suspects.
Which became our title. So we had a title and an outline, but no script yet, Tony, for what became this film, which is pretty crazy.
It's pretty crazy. Even when doing the review last year, I got an opportunity to see Casablanca on the big screen. I had never done that. And doing research, I did not know that that's where it came from. So even something like that's really, look how
I'm sorry, Mailman Jack is in our chat right now. He just put, look how tall Kevin Pollak is, to go off what we said earlier. I put Jack's head on Kevin Pollak's body, and he's 5'6" in the film, the stand up. So I'm sorry, Jack. But go ahead, Tony. I'm sorry.
No, I just pretty much, that's what I was saying, that I didn't know that the name came, from that. And that's really awesome, that the connection right there.
Yeah, and the way Singer got actually the title was not only from that film, but he actually was reading an article in Spy magazine, which used the title "Round Up the Usual Suspects" as a column, and he's like, he liked that, so he used it for the title of his movie. The script was actually modeled from a previous script that Christopher McQuarrie had written with a lot of people that he actually knew in real life. Keyser Soze was actually named after his boss previously, and he had to change his name because his former boss was like, I don't know if I want to be known as a guy that vicious, which I mean, I can understand.
Yeah.
He also worked at a detective agency, and this influenced his description of the criminals and the law enforcement officials in this script, which I thought was pretty cool. Singer said that McQuarrie rang him up one day after he had written about 50 pages of the script and said, what if the villain pulls the whole story off a bulletin board? And he replied, now that's the way to make a damn movie, which is what we got to today. There were 9 drafts written over 5 months before the script was finally put out. Again, the script was written with both Kevin Spacey, due to the meeting at Sundance, and also Chaz Palminteri, who was coming off his big Bronx Tale fame, as well as I think he was in, what was it, Blows Over Broadway, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, I think you are right.
Yeah, so he just came off 2 films. He was making money, which I thought was, is awesome, especially for a person who was a struggling stage actor. If you guys want to know about Chaz, he has a pod, but his life story so far is like very interesting. He's a person who's basically struggling for most of his acting career, and then he got his big break from De Niro in Bronx Tale, and that basically he just shot out like a rocket from there. He doesn't do as much film as he used to, but he is a great character actor and a wonderful actor, actually, altogether.
To me, again, this movie isn't, without Chaz, it isn't, I think it's a different movie too, because his part is just as important as all the other parts, because he's kind of the glue a little bit, holding the whole thing together. And it's awesome that he was a part of it. But you're absolutely right. Really awesome actor.
For sure. So like I said, McQuarrie once worked for a lawyer who was called Keyser Soze. And he wanted his name changed for the role, which I thought was pretty hilarious. And the inspiration for Keyser Soze was actually real life murderer by the name of John List, who unalived his family and disappeared for 17 years. Now, the reason that person is so famous is because of the heinous crime he committed. Also, the fact he went away for 17 years, and the fact he appeared on America's Most Wanted, where they actually made a bust of him, like a paper mache bust of what he would look like aged. And when they caught him, it was the exact same picture as the model, which I thought was crazy. Ryan's already quoting a movie
I know, it's a great quote.
Chat. But as we go in, so we had the script written. Now we're going to go into casting. So as we said, Kevin Spacey was in mind for the film when the script was written. But when he got the script, he didn't know which role he was going to play. He liked the roles of Keaton and Cunyan, but mostly was drawn to the role of Verbal Kint, which is the role that McQuarrie and Singer actually wanted him to play anyway. So I think that kind of worked out perfectly for them. The role of Special Agent David Cunyan was originally written with Chaz Palminteri in mind. When he was proved unavailable due to scheduling conflicts, the role was offered to several big stars like Christopher Walken, Clark Gregg, Robert De Niro, and even Al Pacino. The later being rather more interested in playing the part, but Pacino decided against it as he had just played a cop in Heat. And when Palminteri became available, he was only there for a week. So Clark Gregg was actually cast as David Cunyan. Well, when Palminteri became available, they're like, no, we're going to put Palminteri in his original role. Clark, you're going to play the role of Dr. Walters. Pacino actually said later that it's one of the few films he actually regrets passing on. And to be honest with you, I can't see Al playing David Cunyan.
You know what's funny is you're right, because I said that about Chaz earlier, but I see Al like sitting on the edge of the desk glow like Chaz, like for some reason with his hair and his voice. I'm curious at the end when he gets, well, never mind. We'll get to that later. What his reaction would be versus Chaz, as he's screaming, no. Is it like Devil's Advocate where he full goes devil backwards? Like, how's that turn? But
we got to remember too, like Heat was when Al started getting into the screaming Al phase.
Oh yeah.
Is when it's really coming out. So I don't know. I think Chaz just plays the part so well. I don't know. It's just Palminteri has this aura about him, like suave, cool guy, but he means business. Al, same way, but it's just different auras from the two. I think Chaz.
Not at this time. Not this Al. This isn't Godfather Al. We're talking.
Yeah. But I mean, they still they ooze like a good aura. But I think Chaz it was just a film, part built for him.
Well, it's like, can you imagine Chaz in the role of Alan Heat? No,
I can't.
You know what I mean? So it's like, I get it. Yeah.
Yeah, he would have overreacted like every film he's done since Godfather too. I mean, The Irishman, he overacted, but that was actually like one of his better roles. I mean, Carlito's Way was a great film for him.
I really like Dog Day Afternoon.
Dog Day Afternoon, also another great film.
I mean,
Serpico, another great film.
This week passed away director Norman Jewison. He's got a movie called And Justice for All. Pacino, it's like 81. But overall, you're absolutely right. This movie, I don't think wouldn't fit him.
Yeah.
Or De Niro. De Niro definitely, I don't think could have played.
No, I don't think Al or Robert could have played this role.
Give me Christopher Walken. Come on.
What are you doing?
What are you doing?
And I love Christopher Walken.
Oh, I do too.
So with the character of Fenster, who is known in the film for being Bailey's basically incomprehensible manner of speech and all his mannerisms, Singer actually wanted an older actor to play the role. He felt like someone like Mike Stanton would actually be a good character actor for it. And he wanted to have like a partnership of like Fenster and McManus being the old guy, young guy dynamic. But on the page, the role didn't have much personality to it. And when Singer couldn't seem to find the right actor for it, it was actually Kevin Spacey who recommended Del Toro for the role. With that, Jeff Bridges, Johnny Cash, Chris Cornell, Tommy Lee Jones, Charlie Sheen, James Spader, Christopher Walken, and even Johnny Cash were considered for the role of Redfoot because the studio wanted a big name star for that small role. And they eventually cast Peter Green in the role. And for all those who don't know who Peter Green is, why don't you tell them who he is, Tom?
Peter Green in the movie is, he plays Redfoot. And to me, it's another role in the movie that's probably one of my favorites. And I didn't know even how to quote one of my favorite quotes in the movie. We're going to get to that later too, because I don't want to start giving stuff away too early until we get to the actual what the movie's about. But his role in the movie, though, it's a small role, okay? But what's crazy is that just kind of doing the research, how other people were offered the part of this role. You know what I mean? Everyone from Johnny Cash and Jeff Bridges and Chris Cornell and Tommy Lee Jones and Charlie Sheen and James Spader and even Christopher Walken. But Peter Green was cast as Redfoot. And to me, at the time of seeing this movie, you got to go back to where have you seen Peter Green before, and you may have seen him in a basement in a movie that we also might like here at the show podcast, and that's Pulp Fiction. So a small role in this, small role in that, and to me they're both pretty memorable.
Also, don't rule out his role as Dorian in The Mask.
That is
not the Eric Stoltz movie.
No, you're absolutely right. I totally forgot. But later, when we get to the description of the movie, again, it's another key role in the whole in the whole movie, and I think Green does a good job in what limited screen time he does have.
Yeah, another great character actor. Just he commands the screen when he talks. Mannerisms, really big. I'm a real big person on mannerisms. Like to see, can this person be believable? And he really made it believable. As you can tell he's a little shady guy. But it was a good role pick for him. After reading the initial script, Gabriel Bryan loved it, but thought the ending was something he didn't quite understand. He also thought that the filmmakers couldn't pull off due to them being really young and not really well known. He accepted the role of Keaton, but he actually pulled out because at the time he was going through a divorce. He was really emotionally drained, and he just had to be convinced by Bryan Singer not to come back, which he did. And actually to this day, he thanks him for that. Kevin Pollak was also skeptical about reading the role for Hockney. He didn't know who Singer and McQuarrie were. His agent kept pushing it. Singer wanted to have Pollak in the film, but Kevin Pollak, again, didn't know who he was. He was just coming off Few Good Men, so he could pick and choose what films he wanted. When his agent sent him the script, he said he got 5 pages into the script, called his agent and said, "Let's do this." But when they called Singer was so excited that he called, but he told him, "Hey, Kevin, I would love you in this film for this role, but I can't give you the part right away. I have 2 other actors coming in to audition." And that's per protocol, with SAG. You have to have, once you tell the actor you're going to give them audition, if they're SAG member, you have to give them that audition. Pollock said, was like, well, I want this role. So he said, I'll come in and audition because I don't want them to outplay me for this role. He went and auditioned, stole the show, and the rest is history. And he was cast as Todd Hockney. Another great casting. Like, what'd you think about him?
Oh, Todd Hockney is, again, the way all of these actors, backing back up a little bit back to Gabriel Byrne. I'm a huge Gabriel Byrne fan. Recently on TV, I watched this movie by the Coen brothers called Miller's Crossing.
Beautiful movie. I love it.
He's a great actor, and in this movie, to me, again, imagining someone else in his role, and just like someone else in, Hockney's role, Kevin Pollak. I mean, Kevin Pollak started as a stand-up comedian, okay, but I've seen Kevin Pollak in serious movies. My wife loves Kevin Pollak in the Grumpy Old Men series. Like, Kevin Pollak he's great, and I think in this movie he's actually cool. Like, he's really cool, and and I think he does a really good job, and I can't see anybody else playing him, despite
for sure. Or whatever. Also, excellent poker player.
Oh yeah,
Pollock. He's known for winning a lot of cash games. He's also in She's All That. Yes, he is. He's in She's All That, underrated film, and also underrated role.
He's the dad in that, right?
Yeah,
that's what I thought about first, but I didn't want to throw that out and get it wrong. But yeah, he's good even as the father in that movie because he can do different things,
For sure, he's very versatile. Yeah. Also, I mean, my brother and me always quote A Few Good Men. Weinberg
as one of the
Weinberg.
Tom Hanks's people on his jury team or whatever. He does a great job in that movie.
Tom Cruise to Tom Hanks. That's all good. Tom Hanks was in Philadelphia, so he did play a lawyer.
He did. He sure did.
Yeah. Also, Stephen Baldwin auditioned for the role of McManus. When Baldwin went in to go do it, he was tired of doing independent films. Where his expectations were not met, which I think is kind of hilarious because Stephen Baldwin's not really known as a great actor. But when he met Bryan Singer, he went into a 15-minute tirade telling him what it was like to work with him. After he was finished, Singer told him exactly what he expected and wanted, which impressed Baldwin, and he was hired for the role of McManus. Again, Baldwin is not going to win any Oscars, but I think this role was perfectly fit for him. I think he played it perfectly because he's a crazy bully, but he's some kind of emotional guy. And I think it was, a perfect, match for both of them. Just perfect place, perfect time.
Hey, man.
What truck?
The truck with the guns, fucko.
Fucko.
Yeah, such a dick in that movie. But
the way he just, I'm curious how many takes, I wish there was a place to tell me how many takes some of these takes took. Like, if that's the first take and they got it, or even the second take, it's right there. It's right there.
I mean, this is probably one of his most famous lines in a movie.
Give me the fucking keys, you fucking cocksucker motherfucker!
John, sit down. The way is the best is after he says that, the guy, he's like, sit down, and then it cuts to the next scene or whatever. It's great.
Yeah, that whole line. We'll get into it a little more, but that scene is great. And then to cap off, we have the great Giancarlo Esposito was cast after reading the script at a hotel after the Cannes Festival was actually pushed out to him. He loved it so much and was given the role of Agent Jack Baer. It was kind of crazy because after I watched this movie again, and I'm like, man, he looks so young in this film. Another great character actor who is getting his roses now. He was on Breaking Bad. He's a great, awesome actor. He's also in a game called Far Cry 6 where he plays the villain. He's just awesome. I want to go back and explore his filmography myself just to watch more of his movies. But another underrated guy who's finally getting his roses.
he's, again, you're absolutely right. He's awesome. I mean, one of his first roles is he plays a cellmate in Trading Places, but he's also like in I like him a lot with Christopher Walken, back to him in King of New York. He's one of his side henchmen. But he's really, like, as you stated, like Peter Green, you call him in there and he does exactly what calls for the thing. And
yeah, you're great. He's great. Oh my God. So Brian put a comment in, the guy goes from threesome to Usual Suspects. Yes, that's Stephen Baldwin.
Threesome.
Oh my goodness. I saw that movie. It's
yeah. Oh yeah. I totally see in the name. I could see going to the video store and I could see it right there sitting there in the box. So yeah.
Yeah. And a great picture. You have actually Dan Hedaya was cast as Sergeant Jeff Rabin, another actor who is kind of, doesn't get his roles. He's a great character actor. He's actually I love him in this role, but he's actually in one of my favorite films, Night at the Roxbury. He plays Steve Butavi, Mr. Butavi, his dad, Steve Butavi and Doug Butavi's dad, Mr. Butavi, and he's hilarious in that film. Me and my brother quote that film a lot too. I love Dan Hedaya. He's also in Clueless as Cher's dad. Another great character actor, again, who doesn't get his roses.
I love him again. I hate to bring up the Coen brothers a second time, but he's the husband in the very first movie, Blood Simple. He's a great part again. But in this movie, really, really, really good. Hold on a second. He does it all around. Let me ask you a question here. Between Predator and Alien, which one do you know which one he was in? He was in one of the film series between both of them.
I know he was in Commando.
He is in Alien Resurrection. He's like
he is. Yeah, yes. He's the guy who throws a grenade and then he salutes and then get his brain.
The only reason I remember is because we're in the theater and he's got like a tank top on, but he's got super hairy shoulders. And my buddy's like, "Look at his shoulders," and we're just like, "But he's amazing, man. His shoulders seem to be amazing too, but he's good."
He was also in the Addams Family. He's one of the bad guys.
He's good in that too.
Yeah, just another great character actor that you see him on screen. You're like, he's in so many things, but you can't quite remember his name. But yeah, Dan Hedaya definitely should get his roses, and he's a good actor for the role. We also had Susie Amos, who was cast as Edie Finnerman. I thought she played a good role for her limited time on screen. And another person who I think kind of steals the show is Pete Postlethwaite, who was cast as Kobayashi. Pete Postlethwaite, of course, was in Romeo and Juliet remake in the 90s, which was a good film. And he's also in the film with Ben Affleck, The Town, where he plays Fergie as a bad guy. And I think he's an excellent actor. Lost way too soon.
Really awesome in, as you just stated. Okay, here we go again. Here's part two. Between Predator and Alien, which movie was Peter Postlethwaite in?
He had to be in. He was probably an Alien. I could see him in Alien.
Alien 3.
Yes.
He's one of the guys on the thing. That's crazy though. I just fell into that right now. I did not mean to ask you any of those questions. No, it's cool that two actors happen to be in the Alien series back to back.
And he's also, in my opinion, the best part in the Lost World of Jurassic Park 2. As the guy who hunts and wants to hunt the Tyrannosaurus Rex. He's probably like the best part of that movie.
But back to what you brought him up. When I, of course, think of this movie and think of him, I do think of him in that town role. It's, again, an excellent role for him to be one of his last ones, too.
Yeah, get you good and proper. So that's our cast. So we now have a cast done. But this film kept running into issues. When they were trying to promote this film to studios, they could not get anybody to sign on for it, to the point where there was no financing because a lot of studios were afraid of the script because it was non-linear. This is also before Chaz actually signed on. The script was sent to 50 different companies and all of them rejected it. Eventually, a German investor came forward and said he'll front the bill. They find out this guy didn't have the money to front the bill. They offered the roles to the cast before knowing this. So when Singer and them found out the guy didn't have the money for the role, they said, This quote Singer says, and we found out the company doesn't really have any financing there, and they need to know how to raise it. So we go to the 5 actors and we were like, I know we made you offers, but we really have a financial issue. Can you sign a 10-day option on commitment to the film? And they were like, what the hell, man? We thought you were offering us roles, and now we have to attach ourselves to help you raise money. So it's kind of crazy. And this is another Gabriel Byrne. He was already iffy about being in a film. Now he has to sign something that's saying he might not get paid. He could opt out in 10 days. Luckily, Palminteri became available, and with his marketability, a studio went and signed it on for the film to be made, which I thought was pretty crazy. That he basically saved the film. They got $6 million in funding just because he was on the film.
That's just crazy. All just in general, but that's it again. Look at what has to go through to get to that level of getting the production off the ground.
Yeah, and you got two new screenwriter and a new director that are really relatively unknown. I mean, they have Spacey, they have Stephen Baldwin, they have all these other cast members, but they didn't have Palminteri yet, and the other people were just basically starting out. So the studio was like, I don't know if I want to do this, until Palminteri signed on. So he saved this film, which I think if Pacino would have came, I'm pretty sure they would have funded him.
Oh yeah.
But Palminteri, it's kind of cool that Palminteri kind of came in and saved the day, which I think is kind of cool.
It is.
But in terms of music, so this is another interesting part I found researching. The music was written by John Ottman, who was actually the film's editor. And the reason for this is because on Singer's previous film, which he won at the Sundance Festival, the composer was lost, and Ottman, who had been dabbling in music, said he could do it. Singer took a big risk and was like, you know what? You can do it. The film turned out great for him, that he loved the score. So when Singer approached him for this movie, he told him, you can only score this movie if you edit it. And Ottman responded, I will only edit it if I score it. So it was a match made in heaven. And they actually had everything, done, which I think is kind of cool. So a guy of many talents, John Ottman. And the score for this film, to me, is great. Piano, a lot of ominous tones. I think it sets the mood perfectly the way it's done.
I mean, folks, if you haven't heard my amazing co-host editing skills, the video he put together with the music that was behind it, it sent again. It put me like I was right into the movie again, because the whole score in the movie, as you stated, I think it's great from the beginning to the end. It fits. And as the way you described it, it makes it seem like here's a guy who's been doing it for 30 years and he just did something else great, but that's not how it happened.
Yeah, it's totally crazy how he just, was dabbling in it. And then eventually, John Ottman became Singer's right-hand man for his films. He did the X-Men films with him. He did Gothica, he did a lot of scores for other movies, House of Wax, Cellular, Superman Returns. So he did those vehicles. It basically launched his score career, which I think is pretty cool.
That's really cool.
But that is the development. So a lot of twists and turns just to get this film made. It was born off an idea that was basically seen on a poster and used from a previous script. And we got what we got into making it into this film, which I think is pretty crazy, Tom.
It is very, very, a lot of it went into it just to get it off the ground.
Definitely. But let's get into the film breakdown.
See the arc? He starts down here. He ends up here. Where's my arc, Paulie?
Where's my arc, Paulie?
Yeah, I'm a huge Sopranos nerd, so I had to use it.
I just love Christopher's my favorite, so I just laughed. But
yeah, he's one of my favorite characters in that too. But as we said, we're going to go into a film deep dive in here. And the movie opens up with an explosion on a dock. We see prior to explosion, we see Gabriel Byrne walking around. He gets shot in the back before trying to explode the boat. And a guy pisses actually on the fire before it explodes. He eventually gets asked what time it is. The guy tells him what time it is and tells him, is he ready? And then he gets shot. Then the guy throws down his cigarette, which lights up the explosion. It explodes as he gets away. And we cut to a basically an area with rope that's off, and you assume that there's somebody hiding in there. This scene right here was actually supposed to be longer. The Dean Keaton character was supposed to plant a bomb, which is why he's asking what time it is. They actually cut that part out, but the subplot was kind of used for the opening scene, which I thought was kind of crazy. Because it fits so well, and they kept the dialogue in, which, like I said, he asks the character, "What time is it?"
After watching it so many times and then seeing it, trying to see if you see an eyeball when, it's just because you're meant to believe later that we'll come to that. But just the way the beginning is, it's awesome the way it's set up. And I didn't realize it was supposed to be longer. So that was something cool when doing research for this.
Yeah, and actually Singer actually filmed all the exploding boat scenes in his backyard, which I thought was pretty funny. So I can only imagine how, that was filmed. We cut to the character of Verbal Kint, who's actually been the person that was actually presumed to be hiding in that area. He's actually picked up by the police and he's interrogated. He starts to spin a story about how somebody messed up. Not just any mess up, they messed up. And he goes in to the scene where they're all, 6 weeks later, put in a lineup where all these characters are met. And then we get these classic lines like this.
How many keys, you cocksucker?
In English, please.
Excuse me.
In English.
How many fucking keys, you cocksucker? What the fuck?
That's the character of Fenster, played by Del Toro. This scene is iconic, which is the famous lineup scene that's seen on the poster. And most of the stills from the movie, you'll see that's like the scene that sticks out as they all line up. This scene was iconic due to the fact that Del Toro kept farting while they were filming, and the actors could not stop laughing. So what you see in the film is like outtakes of what was really going on, because Singer couldn't control them. So he's like, fuck it, we're just going to shoot this way. And it actually adds a lot to the scene, like as these criminals know this is a joke. So they're like, whatever, we're going to do what we got to do. And it kind of makes them seem like they've been there before. They're used to this, run-the-mill deal with interrogations and lineups. And I thought it added a lot to the scene, just leaving it in there as being natural. What about you?
I'm right with you. The natural play of everybody in that scene makes it seem like they've been friends for a long time. The movie right off the bat, you just play Del Toro's what got me right off the bat in the movie. His dialect was right. It was like, what is this? Who? And he was funny, and it was different. And I still feel like it really, again, it showcases how awesome Del Toro is.
For sure. And like you said, his dialect is something Del Toro went on to explain in later interviews. He was on Inside the Actor Studio, and he explained his character's only real purpose in the story was to die. So to liven things up, he tried delivering Fenster's lines differently than the way the audience hears them in the film, very quickly and thick and indescribable, like in an indescribable accent. This is kind of funny because, like I told you, Giancarlo Esposito, when he read the script, he loved it. He loved the film. He's like, oh man, it's going to be a masterpiece. And it was the dialect of Fenster was so outrageous that when they went to film this scene, Esposito heard him talk and was like, are you mocking somebody with a disability? Like, is he taking this role seriously? Like, what? He's like, oh man. He's like, he thought that Del Toro wasn't taking the role seriously. And reflecting on it now, after the film had come out, he's like, there's no other way you can play that character. He goes, he did it masterfully. He goes, I at the time was like, what the hell is he doing? And now I'm like, damn, that just shows what kind of a genius he is, as a actor. And I thought it was incredibly done well by Del Toro.
Very, very, very much so. I agree.
So as we cut through after the lineup, we go into a interrogation scene, and where all the characters are interrogated. And the crazy thing is, Christopher McQuarrie, who wrote the script, is actually one of the cops interrogating all of the suspects. I think is pretty hilarious. Some great lines from Todd Hockney, like this one.
You know what happens if you do another turn in the joint?
Fuck your father in the shower and then have a snack. You're going to charge me, dickhead?
Which keeps it going on. The dialogue in the interrogation scene just cracks me up. You have Hockney saying this, as well as,
you guys don't have a fucking leg to stand on.
You think so, tough guy? I could put you in Queens on the night of the hijacking.
Really? I live in Queens. Did you put that together yourself, Einstein? What, you got a team of monkeys working around the clock on this?
Hockney's character is basically a person that doesn't care about anything or anybody. That totally pulls through in these comments.
No, I mean, all of those are, if I haven't said them 400 times to friends or just out loud to myself, what do you got, a team of monkeys working around the clock? I've said that to people when they haven't done something that they were supposed to just because I heard it in that movie. These are great quotable lines.
Definitely. And just like it said, like Kevin Spacey's character says in the film, Todd Hockney, for sure, the one man who didn't give a shit about anybody else but himself, which is totally how he plays the character. And although Pollock is a small man, he also plays a person that you wouldn't want to fuck with in real life, like if you met him in a situation. So he plays an intimidating character.
Well, I love after when they're all sitting they're all sitting together after the lineup, and they're sitting there, and he's like, "What about you, Pretzel Boy? What's your story?" Pretzel Man, what's your story? Just that line again is great.
For sure. And then you have another great Fenster line too during the interrogation.
What are you saying?
I say, he'll flip you.
He'll what?
Flip you. Flip you for real.
Yeah, I'm shaking.
I like when and also the part that scene he goes, Doc said, "Hello, can you hear me in the back?"
Yeah.
That part cracks me up, and we transition to the part where they're all in the cell after Keaton gets punched in the head. He goes back to the cell and he's sitting there getting berated by McManus about him turning straight. And you hear Keaton, Gabriel Byrne's character plays, like, you can tell he's a person trying to turn his life around, but also he has a dark side, and just the lines he delivers like this one show that he's a person not to be messed with.
Hey, Fenster, do your friend a favor. Tell him to keep quiet.
Like, calming delivery, you could tell he's not going for it.
Really awesome the way Byrne, he plays off everybody. In that whole lineup, he's different than everybody else. Well, it's so Spacey, but he's not like trying to be cool. Like those other guys are like Benicio, Pollock, Baldwin. They're all saying slick lines. He's more like, what am I doing? Like, because I like the scene that happens right after they're all sitting in the jail, when they all look at each other when they come out of the thing, and they're all staring, and Spacey's just standing there from a distance, and they're all just kind of looking at each other. You get those vibes a lot.
Yeah, totally. And Brian has a good comment here saying, so well cast all the way around. And yeah, we're gonna keep pushing that. The cast is so perfectly done. They played out, they feed off each other. The lines are great. It's just a great ensemble here, and I thought it was perfectly done for this film. As three get done for the interrogation, they're all cut loose because Edie Fetterman gets them out. And then we cut back to the present, where Agent Jack Bayer, I was about to call him Jack Bauer, I was thinking 24 on my line, searches the dock, and David Cunyan is coming in to interview the person that was actually found at the docks, which turns out happens to be Verbal Kint. They meet each other, and David Cunyan, who's played by Chaz Palminteri, basically lets him know, how it really is going to go in these interviews.
First thing on the job, you know what I learned? How to spot a murderer. Let's say you arrest 3 guys for the same killing. You put them all in jail overnight. The next morning, whoever's sleeping is your man. You see, if you're guilty, you know you're caught. You get some rest. You let your guard down. You follow me?
No.
Let me get right to the point. I'm smarter than you. And I'm going to find out what I want to know. And I'm going to get it from you whether you like it or not.
I'm not a rat.
Like, that delivery, that line is like, to me, it always sticks out to me. As a person who worked in the justice system, I've heard cops say that people who feel like, they're caught and they know they're caught usually relax more when they're caught in prison. Like when they're in jail, they know they'll be relaxed, while the person that's usually like totally is innocent freaks out, won't stop freaking out, won't stop worrying. It's kind of like okay, they got me kind of realization, like I can calm down now.
Yeah,
which I think is pretty crazy.
that is, and again, Chaz does a good job,
Mhm.
portraying that onto Verbal's character right there.
Yeah, and you know, Spacey himself also goes on. Chaz then play off so well when he goes in there and he's talking about Keaton, and he goes, "Dean Keaton was a piece of shit." And he goes off and says,
Are you trying to get a rise out of me, Agent Kuyan?
"Oh, hey, Chaz is no David Caruso. I will agree with that. Nobody's better than H from CSI Miami."
You ever see Kiss of Death or
Yeah.
Jade?
Yes, I've seen it. To be this is going to be totally off subject, but
Yeah.
David Caruso is actually in another great film. I think me and Soul have reviewed it before.
First Blood. First Blood?
No, not first. He is the First Blood.
Yeah.
But it's a movie, a paranormal movie.
Yeah, it's Session 9.
Session 9, yes.
Yeah, that's a good movie.
And it has one of the most quotable gifts and used gifts when he's like, "Hey, fuck you." But that's a great film. I'm happy Caruso got eventually his career got turned around, because when he left NYPD Blue after that after he won the American Globe, because he thought he was bigger than that to do films, it didn't work out for him. And then eventually
You're looking for a good Friday night, just a good Nicolas Cage is pretty good in Kiss of Death. It's ridiculous. It's and Samuel Jackson's in it too. He's got an eye that keeps crying. It's a good one. But again, I'm glad too. He's good in some things.
For sure. And Nicolas Cage in a weird movie. I mean, I never heard that. But so after we go through the interrogation of Verbal and we start talking to him, he begins to spin a story. I love the way the scene is formulated here when he's telling him, he gets him his coffee and he's telling me, "Tell me what happened."
Yeah.
And as they're going into the transition, you see Spacey looking up while he drinks his coffee at Kunyan, who's standing over him. And it kind of like, as the story progresses and you start to see the little clues, that's a big clue right there that Singer's pointing out to you that you don't really recognize until later in the movie, which I think is really, really well done, because they're showing you this movie in general is just a movie that you have to watch over again, and you're willing to watch over again because you want to see the parts and bits and pieces that you missed that piece everything together to give you that, satisfaction of knowing what, was there any clues that show me to this ending or not? And this is part of the ones that really starts getting you like, oh, okay, so that makes a lot of sense. Like, did you notice that?
Yeah, no, I'm with you, and I noticed the same exact thing. I love my favorite kind of movies, and they still are a movie like this where you don't know the ending. It's a shock, it's a surprise. And this one, I remember, it's along the lines of like Primal Fear with Edward Norton. These movies just kind of like, whoa, really? They pulled that card, and then you watch it again to see how they pulled it, and and still watching it now, it's cool to see how it all put it together.
Yeah, it's masterfully done. While he's telling the story, we noticed that Bayer discovers the criminal Arkash Kovash, who's one of my favorite lines is Keyser Soze, who's a burn victim that they discovered that was actually on the boat and survived the explosion, with the name Keyser Soze being mentioned. So as Spacey Kent is telling his story, they go back to the first job that was done. So in the lineup, when they're in the cell, all of them after the lineup, McManus pitches a $3 million job robbing New York's finest taxi service, which is basically cops from New York, crooked cops, would drive you for a certain amount of money per mile to your destination. They would basically pick up drug dealers, mafiosos, anybody that's willing to pay. These corrupt cops would get paid. But when questions were being arise, they cut it out. So when they hear that there's another taxi service coming out of retirement for this big job, which is basically somebody's trying to smuggle emeralds out of South Africa, they decide to do it because they know there's a lot of money in it. And like I said, it's a $3 million payday. So they're getting a chunk of that to drive this person around. One of my favorite parts about this is that Louis Lombardi is one of the cops. And those who don't know who Louis Lombardi is, he's Skip from The Sopranos. He's Salvatore Big Pussy Balpancero's FBI agent, the guy he goes to. And he's also in a lot of other films. He's in Beer League as a cop in there. A very good character actor, but it always cracks me up when I see him as one of the cops in the film. And then he has a great line in there too. He says, "You know who the fuck I am? You know who the fuck I am?"
That's the line in my head.
And when Hockney rips off his badge and says, "We do now, asshole."
Do now, asshole.
So it's just that scene itself is when they rob and they basically piece it together to where nobody gets killed. Kent has to convince Keaton to do it because at first he wasn't wanting to do it. Keaton's still another guy who is wavering in. Should I go back to my old life? Prior to the interrogation, he had a meeting set up for a restaurant that was blown up because Kunyan came to arrest him for their initial lineup. So it ruined his chance at that. And he's kind of a guy who's trying to forget who he is. But I love the line in space. He says, some people, they can convince you that they change, but they can't convince themselves that they changed. And that's such a great line because he was trying to convince everybody else he changed, but in reality, he was still struggling with him internally, like who he really is. And eventually he has to go and do this score to make money.
It's true.
As we progress, we go on to the meeting of Redfoot and Peter Green. This whole scene to me, is great because you are introduced to the animosity after the deal is done between Pollock and Baldwin, the characters of McManus and Hockney. They get into a stare down because McManus says that Redfoot doesn't come to him. He goes to Redfoot. Him and Fenster will go out and he's like, no, fuck that. We're not going to get, you guys are going to steal the money from us. So they all go to LA for this. There is a real animosity between the two. And the reason being is that Pollock felt Baldwin was bullying people, including himself, on set to stay in character. And he thought it was, kind of an asshole thing to do. Baldwin came out and said that's kind of true. But the real story of why they didn't like each other is kind of still unclear. But I think it plays very, very well into, their dynamic as characters.
Oh yeah, I'm with you 100% on that.
Yeah.
Back to what you were earlier when we were talking just about this whole Redfoot part when they go and see Redfoot. I like where they're actually, and the music right there, I like a lot too. It's like, bow, 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 bow. It's like, it's really, really, really cool. But
it's like the score is great. Like I listened to the score actually while I worked the other day just to listen to it. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, it's good.
And like we said, again, Verbal is trying to say how Keaton was kind of going back and forth, and Kunyan, who's this anti-Keaton character, thinks he's full of shit. He says that Keaton is an asshole, and everything he's saying is about changed man is completely lying. I love the fact they go try to see Edie to try to give that character again development to Keaton's character, that he's changing as he's trying to wanting to tell her, hey, I'm going to this place. I'm going to do something. I'll be away, but eventually he can't. And he goes up to her law office and he looks at her balcony. He sees her down there working, and instead of telling her, he just walks away. And she kind of knows he's there, and it shows maybe she accepted that he's just not going to change, which I thought was a nice little tidbit that they threw in there for his development of his character.
That was definitely.
So after the exchange is done for the emeralds, Redfoot offers them another job. Again, Keaton is saying he doesn't want to do it. But McManus is saying they will do it. So they're thinking about doing that job. I also like the interaction with Redfoot and Gabriel Bryan here. Again, to show what kind of character Gabriel Bryan is as Keaton, to show that he's not a person to be mentioned with. He tells him, have you ever, messed with Johnson? I heard you know him, to Redfoot. And Redfoot's like, oh, I know old Spook Johnson. Yeah, I know him. He goes, he was a good man. I used to run dope for him until he got shivved. Shame. And he goes, I'm the one who shivved him.
I know. That's a good part.
Yeah, it's just such a great line. He just
and then they look at each other, and just the way they look at each other.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And the music goes in the background. Yeah.
And he goes, I just want to let you know, you'd rather hear it from me than somebody else. Basically saying, I'm letting you know what I did. And the next line, to me, is awesome. The way he says, okay, I know, I appreciate you for telling me. He goes, let me ask, was it business or personal? And he smirks and says, a little bit of both.
Oh.
Which just shows Keaton's just such a badass character.
He was.
And that person is implied as a mentor to Redfoot, which, you're kind of pissing this guy off because Keaton just said one job. That's all I wanted to do. Eventually, they convince him to do another one, and this is where they go to try to steal cash from a dope dealer. From a jeweler. It's from a jeweler, Saul Berg. Basically, Redfoot tells him that there's a jeweler named Saul Berg who has money and a lot of cash on him. He keeps the merchandise, you keep the cash. When they go to take this away from him, they end up killing him and his 2 bodyguards, and they find out he was selling coke. To where they're like, "What is this?" They bring it back to Redfoot. They're very angry, and this is where the famous scene of Redfoot flicking the cigarette in Stephen Baldwin's eye, which is actually real at the time. It really happened. So that wasn't supposed to happen. It was improvised, and it really hit him in the face, which I thought was crazy.
Well, I like when they go back and he goes, "What are we supposed to do with this?" And he goes, "I don't know. Feed it to the gimp to ease his pain." And it hits like off of Spacey, like Spacey doesn't even like flinch or whatever. Mm-hmm. So you imagine is Spacey in the interrogation room going, "He threw it at me and it hit off me and I didn't really say," or is that just, part of the story? I like it. I like that.
Yeah. It's, to me, it makes me look like it shows that it's kind of spiraling down. He set him up. Yeah. And then it makes you think, was it because of Keaton's comments to
That's it
him
right there.
prior? Like, you meant to think about that, like as a playback to that scene. I love that whole dialogue. Keaton tries to play the person that is a go-between, but you can't control McManus. Also, it's worthy to note that the killing of Saul Berg was actually done by Verbal Kint, who previously said there should be no killing, which is crazy. He just randomly shoots him because Berg wouldn't give the briefcase up to Keaton.
Mm-hmm.
And I do love that Keaton had like a Kato mask. When he robs him. That I saw that and it made me laugh because he has like a Kato mask and he walks up to him like, "Just give me that briefcase."
I like also right when that scene, it's like Baldwin or whatever, he's like, "Shit happens." What does he say? Like right before it like switches or whatever, like he's like said something along the lines of like, "Shit happens," and then they just keep going. But yeah, I know it's
and they also show his marksmanship as he has the 2 guns and he's looking through them.
Yeah. Oh,
and he shoots the 2 guys on the side while they're struggling with cool. Pollock and Del Toro. He kills both of them. And then, of course, Kent kills Berg, which is crazy. So as we find out that Redfoot says that the job was given to him by a lawyer. At the time, the lawyer says that he wants to meet them, which they want to meet him too. And this is our introduction of Mr. Kobayashi. And Mr. Kobayashi tells them about a man named Keyser Soze. And the man Keyser Soze he tells him about is basically somebody who makes people work for him that don't know he's working for him. And the reason he does that is...
One cannot be betrayed if one has no people.
Which I think is a great line.
Such
a great line. Postlethwaite's delivery is awesome. I love his character. I really like the way he says, "Mr. Sose's big dealings in narcotics." Like his accent is awesome.
They're all in the back corner of one side of the room and they're all arguing. And when the camera pans to the other side, it's him, but it's like, it's dark. So you just see his silhouette standing there or whatever. And they're like, just like, look at him or whatever. And then he starts in what he's saying. I think it's great.
For sure. And then we get the pullback to Jack Bayer, who comes in after he hears about Soze. He pulls in David Cunha from the interview. And he says, "Has he mentioned Keyser Soze?" And he's like, "Huh?" And he kind of tells him a little bit about it. And one of my other favorite lines, he walks back into the interrogation room, the office with Verbal, and he's like, "Who is Keyser Soze?" And he's like, "Oh shit."
Oh yeah.
And then he begins to tell us the story of Soze.
Who is Keyser Soze?
He's supposed to be Turkish. Some say his father was German. Nobody ever believed he was real. Nobody ever knew him or saw anybody that ever worked directly for him. But to hear Kobayashi tell it, anybody could have worked for Soze. You never knew. That was his power. The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist.
And I think that's like one of the best lines of this film, the greatest trick the devil ever pulled, convincing the world he didn't exist. And that's what Soze is presumed to do. He's just a person that went underground. They give the backstory of Soze, who was basically a small-time drug dealer in, I think he was a Hungarian.
Mm-hmm. He was Hungarian.
He went into it with previous other Hungarians that were trying to take over the territory. They went and basically assaulted his wife and his children, threatened to kill them. They actually killed one of his children. Mm-hmm. And he goes and kills all of them, including his family, because he did not want them to be bear what they went through, which just shows how sadistic he is. And once
He'd rather live
yeah.
one day, as he goes, he would rather live. He would rather take them out than live one more day than see the faces of what they had to live through that day or whatever. Something.
Yeah, he'd rather have them die.
Yeah.
And after he buries them, he goes and kills all the Hungarians' family, their kids, their businesses, their family members, and he burns them all to the ground. And then goes underground to show, like he's not a person to be messed with. And we go, in this film, there's the going part. Keaton believes there's no Keyser Soze. Fenster, of course, is terrified of him. McManus and Hockney know of him. Kent's the only one that doesn't know who he is at first until they explain the stories to him when they tell of his origin story. I love when the name of Keyser Soze is dropped by Kobayashi, and all the characters besides Kit, kind of look down like, damn it, like, they're into some shit, which shows that this person's name holds a lot of power. Kunyani even eventually asked Kent, does he believe in Soze?
Do you believe in him, Verbal?
Keaton always said, I don't believe in God, but I'm afraid of him. Well, I believe in God. And the only thing that scares me is Keyser Soze.
Like the lines in here are so great in delivery. Kobayashi tells the group that you've all stolen from him. Keaton, you stole some metal that in 1981 on a truck that was supposed to go to Pakistan for a nuclear bomb. The driver didn't know, and you didn't know. That's the only reason you're alive. He says Fenster and McManus stole again a cargo plane that was carrying products to Pakistan. Again, nobody knew who they were working for. The only reason they're alive. Kent, he says, was a person who was part of a confidence scheme of one of Soze's associates. Again, didn't know who he was working for, and he took, I think, $60,000 from him. So, and then we find out that Hockney was actually the person that stole the weapons truck, which they went to the initial lineup for, which also belonged to Soze, who was going to reroute it and sell the parts. And again, this goes back to the line that Kunyan says when he says, the first thing you learn as a cop is the one who sleeps is you're guilty. And if you look back at that scene when Hockney's in the cell, he's actually laying down trying to sleep because he knows he was caught, which is like a great playback to earlier scenes. It's just masterful writing throughout this film. Masterful writing.
The one thing I'll just say that I always found that just a tad humorous, I want to ask your opinion about, is one of my favorite scenes is the whole description of who Keyser Soze is and the visuals. But then they show who Keyser Soze is, and he's like this Antonio Banderas, long-haired. Now, my question is who you find out it to be. Does that really look like him? Like, could that have been?
No. I think they wanted to put the ambiguity behind.
I know.
It.
But humorously, to imagine that that's actually like whoever with flowing hair, even if it was Baldwin with flowing hair, it'd be like, wow, this is kind of. But no, you're right. No, it's the ambiguity.
And then Scott B. Morgan was actually cast as Soze in the film as for the uncredited flashbacks, which is why he has a flowing hair. He kind of reminds me of in Blade 2, the vampire. What's his name? I can't think of his name. He's a comedian. But he has a long hair. Priest, the character of Priest. You know what I'm talking about?
You talk about Donald Logue?
No, not.
Was he in 3?
No, he's in part 2, the Del Toro film. The character of Priest. He's also in extreme of a Legendary Extreme Gentleman or some shit. That movie with Sean Connery. That was Tony Corran.
Yes.
The comedian. Yeah, it reminds me. That's who, like when I see it now, that's what I thought of because he kind of looks like him in the silhouette. But yeah, and then you find out in the end, and you're like, that couldn't have been him. But Kobayashi gives them a deal. You will do a job for Soze, which is basically he's getting into narcotics, and he has these Argentinians that he wants to, he's been competing with. He wants to have their deal blown up. The prize you get is you'll be off the hook, but and you get to save any of the $91 million as part of this transaction. You can keep. The only thing he asks is that you destroy the product. First, they're like, they don't want to do it. Kobayashi leaves a gift for them before, even though they threaten him, he leaves a gift for them, which basically is their lives all in packets, which, shows everything.
Thank you.
Everything they've done. Yeah, which everything they've done. They get scared. Fenster eventually gets scared of this and leaves, and they find him at the beach, dead. Kobayashi calls to say this. He's dead. They find him, and McManus. It shows like McManus's relationship with Fenster. As you can tell, he's like he wants to cry that his friend has passed, and they end up burying him in the sand. All of them do. Hockney, of course, being Hockney, doesn't give a shit. And then towards the end of the flashback, you see him walk over to help bury. It's a pretty powerful scene for such a small character. And Fenster made a pretty big impact on the film for such a small character.
He did.
So as we transition forward, they want payback. So they decide to hit Kobayashi, hit him hard and kill him. They pretend that they're maintenance workers in the building that Kobayashi is working in. McManus ends up taking out two of his bodyguards on the elevator. They tell him to hit floor 20, which he does. He walks out, and Keaton tells him, I know you can get to me, to all of us, but now you know we can get to you. And he said, he figured you're going to kill him. If you're going to kill him, kill him. But he can't change his employer's mind. This is Mr. Soze. And before they're about to do anything to him, he says, at least let me finish my business with Miss Finnerman. Miss Finnerman is a criminal lawyer who Kobayashi pulled her onto a case. We later find out the case of a stool pigeon that we learn later. And Kobayashi played it perfectly. He had her come in as basically insurance, the case of Arturo Marquez, so he would not get killed. Keaton, of course, is worried about this, and they let him go back to his job. And as I like when he goes back and sits down, and you can't really see Keaton, but you kind of see a silhouette through the window staring at them while he works with them.
Oh yeah.
And Kobayashi just nods. And prior to going over to them, he tells them, we'll add these two bodies to your tab. Now don't come back until the job is finished. Basically, we don't want to see you until the job is finished, which is what, they eventually have to do. And then they do the famous scene where they're all sitting in the car deciding what they're going to do and how they're going to get this done. And it's just crazy how, everything plays out to them. Like, so what did you think about that whole hit on Kobayashi?
The hit on Kobayashi, again, as you stated, it was cool because, well, for me, watching this movie the first time, I'm like, they have big buildings and there's a floor with nothing on it. And then they get off the elevator, and then Baldwin, again, he's great in the scene because I like his black rim glasses. He looks really serious because I'm used to him in Biodome. So this is me seeing Baldwin in a little bit of a different light. But that nod when they're all standing there and he's like, and what about you, Mr. Kint? And you're, and he goes through the list of all of their family members again. And he's like, maybe we'll pay a visit. And then they know that they're going to just have to let him go back in there with Edie. It's a good scene.
Yeah, a very powerful scene where he's threatening all their family members. And like I said, the history of Soze. Soze killed people. And they basically, are scared for their family, loved ones' lives. Edie Finnerman, Stephen Baldwin's nephew, Kent's, I think, uncle that they talk about, Hockney's father. He threatens all these people, and they know he can get to them. So they're like, they have to go do the job, which is basically going, he threatens to castrate Stephen Baldwin's nephew, which is ridiculous. But they all go, they all end up doing the job, and they're trying to say it's not going to be done. And one of my favorite parts of the film is when they're before they go out to do the job, they're all getting into their positions. McManus is up top as the point man to shoot the people down below. Between the Hungarians and the Argentines are having some meeting, and we find out they weren't trading coke, they were trading people. But during the altercation, they go up, and the character of Keaton tells Kint, stay here, and if it doesn't work out, tell Edie I tried, and take the money and take care of her. Which is kind of ironic, that showing that Keaton is trying to be a good person. We go to the scene where they're trying to pull off the job. I love this part by Stephen Baldwin.
Old MacDonald had a farm, E-I-E-I-O. And on the farm he shot some guys. Bada boom, bada bing bang boom.
It's just like I said, Baldwin's acting in here is great as the character McManus. They eventually go through the whole boat looking for this cocaine, and they find, this famous line from Keaton is, "There's no fucking coke on this boat."
There's no coke. There's no coke on this boat. It's great.
And as they're going and shooting all these people, Hungarian, Argentinian alike, we see Hockney go over to a van that has all the money, and he kills the guy in front of the van. And as he goes in, looks at the money, and he's like, yes. He gets shot in the stomach, in the back, and it basically comes out his stomach, and blood just flows out of the money. And he turns around, and I love the scene here, because as he turns to look like he's shocked, a white light just basically comes over his eyes, and you can tell he's probably gone. And then we cut into them going through the boat, still killing people, McManus and Keaton both. Kent's running through, trying to get into hiding spots. Eventually they find out there's no coke. And we see the character of Marquez talking to the other Argentinians. I know he's here. I know Keyser Soze's here. And they're like, shut up, be quiet. And eventually we hear everybody getting killed on the outside. And then we see the door open. And from the perspective of Marquez, he's just looking at a third person out of view. And he says, I didn't tell them nothing. I didn't say anything. And you see the shot outside the window of the blood splatter and a couple shots, and he died. Which they eventually find his body. So as we progress forward, McManus gets killed with a screwdriver in his back as he comes out to meet Keaton. And Keaton again gets shot. And then he asks Keyser Soze, he says, what time is it, Keyser? And he tells him the time, and then he shoots him. And we cut back to the future, or the present time, where Cunyan's saying, did you really see Keaton die? And he's like, I saw him die. I saw Keyser Soze shoot him. And he's like, well, why didn't you help him? And he responds,
But Keaton.
It was Keyser Soze, Agent Cunyan. I mean, the devil himself. How do you shoot the devil in the back? What if you miss?
All right.
It's such a great delivery. This Spacey at his best in terms of acting. His mannerisms. You could tell he's a pathetic character with these, the way he presents himself. And it's true. Like, he shows up, he puts up his crippled hand and says, what if I miss? Which is crazy to think of, what if he did?
Yeah, that's true.
And as we go forward, we find out he keeps saying Keaton's dead. Cunyan again pushes him, saying, we know Keaton's behind all this. The man who can rattle the minds of other men. The man who could get to set up, findings of other people. The man who would kill Edie Fetterman. And we find out Edie Fetterman was killed. Shot in the head in Pennsylvania. To where Kent starts to realize, was it really Keaton? Who's Soze? And then he eventually says it was all Keaton. He's the one who did the finance taxi service. To where Cunyan was really happy.
It was Keaton. He did it all.
Yeah, he cries and he says, well, turn states. He goes, he basically tells him, what states for what? Like, the only reason that guy's going to come back up is to take me, and then he'll disappear forever and never hear from him again.
Yeah.
And he eventually gets away from Cunyan as he walks out the office because he's already made bail. He tells him, fucking cops, and walks away. While he walks away, Dan Hyeda's character, Jeff Rabin, comes in and talks to Cunyan and is basically saying, well, you didn't really learn anything. He's like, I want to let, I learned what I want to know. I just want to let Keaton know we were close. And as he's sitting down drinking coffee, he looks at the bulletin board. All the characters that are names that Verbal mentioned are on the bulletin board. The Skokie Barbershop Quartet in Skokie, Illinois. The Orca Fat Guy.
This orchid is protected from up on high by the prince. And tell me your
What
relationship.
about a pretzel, man? What's your story?
Yep, that whole scene is beautifully shot as his eyes pan, and then he drops his coffee cup, and it breaks, and on the bottom is Kobayashi, which is perfectly done. And like I said in the beginning of the film, as Verbal begins to spin his story, he's looking up at Cunyan. You think he's looking up at Cunyan, but he's actually looking at his coffee mug to see what's on the bottom, which is a name he got from Kobayashi. And as he walks away to get his belongings, he gets a gold lighter. And when they show Soze has a gold lighter. and a gold Rolex, which is the time he tells when he looks at before he tells Keaton the time. As Kent walks out, he begins to walk normally. And you kind of tell, you can see as he transitions and transforms into Soze. So he was Soze all along, which is hinted. And we get a fax from Bayer's contacts at the FBI who are with Kokosh, who tells him a description of Soze, and it's a printout and facial match of who Kent is. And that's when the famous line says, and poof, he's gone. As he's picked up by Kobayashi and drives away. I also like the fact when Kunyan runs outside and he like looks left to right, and you see like the car that they're in stop because of traffic, and then it drives away, which always made me laugh. But it's such a perfect ending. It's one of the best twist endings in film. Just masterfully done.
I mean, I remember a couple things. Number one, I remember again, at the same time this movie came out, I remember the only time I went to Disney World, like it was 96. We went to like Indiana Jones where they did like and I remember the guy on stage was like, look, it's Keyser Soze, because it was what was famous at the time. And I was like, who's Keyser Soze? And then I watched the movie. But in time at that moment, you know, that name was thrown around a lot. This scene at the end, goosebumps down, just the way his foot, just the way it all, and then it clicks like, oh yes, it was him. And the way Peter is in the car, Kobayashi's just standing there and he turns his head or whatever, looks at him, he just sits down and they don't say anything. The music itself right there, when it starts, it's got a little Godfather, like just a little
it's like
bit in there.
A flute in it, I believe.
Yeah, it's good.
It's very well scored. Perfect for this part. And you know, do, and then he drives away, which I think is a masterful ending. And then they show him saying, and poof, he's gone, which closes out the film. Yeah, and like that, he's gone, which I think is a great way to end the film.
It is.
You know, like this scene right here when he's smoking, he lights the cigarette just like he does, like Soze does, and as a character in the film when they show the flashbacks, it all comes together that Verbal was actually Soze, or makes you believe he was Soze. So that's our film breakdown. I know it was a little longer than usual, but this film had a lot of little twists and turns you wanted to get into in terms of details. And since there wasn't a lot in the development, I think we wanted to devote a little more time to the breakdown of the actual film. I know I gave away a lot of spoilers there and a lot of information, but it's a good film that if you haven't seen it, please check this one out.
Definitely. I'm with you. It's one that has been with me since it first came out. I remember going to the local video store and seeing it and saying, this looks like it's going to be awesome. And then I remember in high school bringing it over to a couple girls' houses and being like, you got to watch this movie. It's called Usual Suspects. And they were like, okay. And I was like, you're going to love the ending. And they said they did, but I don't know if they really did. But, I think it still holds up as a pretty good masterpiece.
Yes, and I love young Tony's voice.
Yeah, you like the voice there? You like my young Tony's voice? It'll be coming back every week.
But let's get into our critical reception and fan theories.
You know that fat cocksucker says I look like the Shah of Iran?
Who does? Tony. I never got that at all.
So the reception from the film was mostly positive. It was nominated for 2 Oscars, Best Actor in a Supporting Role for Kevin Spacey as Verbal Kent, which he won. And also it won, young Tony sounds like Mickey Mouse.
I like it.
Thanks, Brian. And it also won for Best Writing Screenplay by Christopher McQuarrie. So the film won 2 Oscars. In terms of grossing, the movie grossed over $23 million on a $6 million budget, but it made you much more on rental. So it was one of those films that after the movie was released on rental, made a lot of money. It's made a ton of best films of all time list. Singer said that when he was at the initial screening, he left towards the end because he had to use the bathroom really bad. And when he came back to the credits rolling, he saw a man and his girlfriend talking. And the guy was like, I'm Keyser Soze. And he's like, when he heard that, he's like, this movie's going to be a hit. Like I said, most critics liked it, but one which really surprised me did not, and that was legendary film critic Roger Ebert, who only gave the film 1.5 stars. Ebert even went so far as seeing the movie twice. The first time he said he saw it, he didn't understand it. So he went back to with a fresh mind and a notepad. And he said in the middle of writing his notes in the story, he's like, I didn't really care. I just think it wasn't developed enough, which to me is pretty crazy because this film, like, to me is masterful. And like, it's everybody's own perception, but it's kind of crazy that one of the greatest film critics out there didn't like the film.
I mean, and that's what's, that's, as we always state, everyone's free to their movie opinion. And I'm sure, honestly, if I were to talk to him, I'd ask him about maybe Chaz's performance and maybe break it down like that. And I'm sure he'd be like, well, that part was good. And maybe that part was good. And that part was good. And, not so much blanket, but maybe not.
Yeah. And the thing is crazy that I watched, so Siskel and Ebert used to have this segment called If We Pick the Winners, which was an Oscar show. They would go through the nominees and they would say who they thought won. Of course, Spacey didn't win for them. They wanted James Cromwell from Babe to win. But when they were describing the nomination for Kevin Spacey, he was the one that was doing the voiceover. And he said, and Kevin Spacey delivers a mind-boggling tale of twists and turns of his tale in The Usual Suspects. So he did give it some praise there. I don't know how much of that was genuine.
Gotcha.
Or was it written for him?
Gotcha.
But like it was like he definitely didn't like the movie, I don't think, because he said the movie was on his worst of the year film list for him. And that's kind of crazy.
That is. But hey.
Yeah, everybody's entitled to their own opinion. So and as we say, sometimes critics and us don't agree, or even in general, public, like, and that's something that's going to happen. So, but like, you're all entitled to your own opinion. But one fan theory I can get into. So there's the main fan theory I see that I saw when researching this is that a lot of people can argue that Kent is not really Soze. This has been argued among fans and others alike, even to the point that the actors didn't know who Soze was, because Singer had all them play Soze at one point or another in the film. So during the flashback scenes, we had Morgan play them, but during the other scenes, when he's in the silhouette, we've had all the characters play him at one point, including Gabriel Byrne, who does they have that famous shot of him in the Soze gear with the gun pointing at him. He was actually asked about this at the showing. They're like, did you know who Keyser Soze was? And he goes, until the film was released, I thought it was me. And he even went to detail that him and Singer had a big like blowout argument because he's like, I think I'm Keyser Soze. And like Singer's like, well, you have to read the script and see how. He's like, but I think it's me. So even he wasn't convinced it was. People also thought that Kent wasn't Soze because he was caught also, and if Soze was so secretive, how did he know everyone? Meaning the politicians and the people that came to bat from, which is, but I can, debunk that by saying Soze had Kobayashi as his middleman. Kobayashi is the only person that has this direct connect and his middleman to go talk to these people like he did to them, the Usual Suspects crew, to do their job. They said that Kovash didn't really know what Soze looked like. He saw Kent and thought it was Soze. So the flashbacks also show a long-haired man. So that's what Soze really looked like. All the information given to Kuyan was lies. So they don't know if that really happened. And Kent could have worked for Soze, but wasn't really him. What are your thoughts on all these theories?
They're some of them I think could be a little bit more ridiculous than others, but I like these theories that we're coming up with today. Currently, I brought up to the coworker the Gremlins theory for Big Trouble in Little China. I'm mentally like that. Like I like to sit on the couch and imagine, well, yeah, I could see that. Some of these theories, again, like I said, I think maybe that's kind of what Ebert might be picking at, is that little aspect of it. But that's the part of the movie where you just got to sit back and let the fun take hold. He might be like, the story that they told doesn't match up to who Spacey really is, so the characters aren't developed. I don't know if that's what he meant, but I think the ambiguity in those characters is what makes the movie strong, though, too. So,
Totally agree, man. Couldn't have said it better.
Yeah.
I personally think like Singer and McQuarrie left enough clues to kind of point to the Soze character being Kent. I also think that Kent didn't know Kovash survived.
Yeah.
So I think the way to close out the deal was he's allowing himself to get caught so he can just get the immunity for the charges and and get just the weapons charge, which is nothing. He was looking at 6 months of hard time, but he was just gonna get the immunity and he could basically squash it. And once he was released, go. I think when he was spinning the tail to Kunyan, it was him basically messing with Kunyan because Kunyan tell him I'm smarter than you, and that probably, piqued his interest to be like, oh, I'm gonna be a dick now.
It's true. No, you're absolutely right.
But either way, no matter how you slice it, I think it's a great film. I think it's masterfully cast, like Brian already said. I think all the characters are just in the right place, right time. It's a good entry into stardom for Singer. Eventually he went on to do X-Men after this, which the first X-Men I thought was pretty well done. And this also kind of launched Spacey into do American Beauty. Paul Materi was already well known for the time, but it kind of got all the other characters extra roles going forward. And it's kind of amazing to me that Pollock was in two great films and A Few Good Men in this film.
Yeah, definitely.
So if you haven't seen it, I know we might have spoiled it for you, but check it out to see if you can find the clues and let us know what you think over at the Show Pod on Twitter.
You could always, in any movie, even I've said it before, I'm a big sucker of looking up a movie even before I see it. Because when you sit down and watch it, it's totally, even what you read or what you hear, it's totally different than experiencing it. And that's what this movie is. You'll sit down and you'll experience it and you'll even be like, oh, did they even say that? Stuff like that. So check it out.
Definitely check it out if you can. And that's our Usual Suspects breakdown, my friend.
That's it.
Yes, sir. So we have 2 more segments, the usual segments that we're going to go into. So let's go straight into them. I know we're running a little long here. Let's go into what's coming soon.
Let's get ready to rumble.
Coming soon.
Próximamente.
Coming soon.
Coming soon.
So, my man, tell everybody what's coming soon.
When you asked me what we wanted to do, this is what came to mind first. I was just afraid if you'd be like, I don't like I don't like this one, but I'm like, you jumped right on board. I'm real excited. It's From Dusk Till Dawn. I'm a huge Robert Rodriguez fan. I could put him just as high as I put Tarantino. And I think From Dusk Till Dawn is a good example of just, it's going to be a really awesome time. And there's a connection to Roadhouse. So stay tuned to find out what that is next week.
For sure. And also, I'm a huge fan of Tito and the Tarantula, which is the band that plays.
There we go. I think you might have even kind of given away a little bit when we're talking about Roadhouse. But yeah, great band.
Yeah,
great
but that's a really big band. I actually like a lot of their music. They did a lot of music for Desperado too, which is Rodriguez's vehicle. But yeah, I'm really, really pumped to do this. This is like I do love this film. It's probably one of my favorite vampire movies.
Awesome.
Eventually, Brian.
Yes, don't worry. It's in the hatch.
Yeah, so we have a lot of great films coming up that we want to do deep dives into. We'll also go back to the usual, the list of maybe a pick a year here and there, but we want to do more deep dives into films because we find out a lot more interesting stuff about our favorite films and other favorite films. So we have some good stuff coming up along with our segments. So that's what's coming next. I'm looking forward to that, my friend, next week. So that's going to be in the bag for next Friday at 8 p.m. So check out that. There'll be a promo dropping next week like we always do. And also a reminder for that day. So be sure to check that out. And to close us out for today, we're going to go with the Sugar Baggies soundtrack of the week.
The Sugar Baggies soundtrack pick of the week.
Got a little creative here tonight because I thought we talked about Shakes the Clown and then we went over and we talked about Usual Suspects. So I'm going to throw a curveball here for 2 different reasons here tonight. And I'm going to pick the 3 reasons. Pretty Woman soundtrack. Number 1, I don't know why, but I can listen to the actual song Pretty Woman like a lot and still love it. And I love that song. Number 2, my amazing co-host here, one of his favorite bands, does a great song on the soundtrack. the Chili Peppers. But overall, this soundtrack played a huge part in my childhood because it was one that my mother would play quite a lot. And unfortunately, 13 years ago today, we lost her. But this song right here, she would play all the time, and it's always stuck in my head. She'd play this song over and over while I'm blasting Metallica in my headphones. And it would just be like, I don't want to hear this song. I hate this song. But now I listen to it, and the soundtrack as a whole, when you put all these different artists together at this time period, you know, it's not bad. And because we're going to be doing like 1 million of these shows, I know I'm going to have to come up with 1 million of these. I thought I'd dig back at the Pretty Woman soundtrack. So thank you for letting me share.
No problem, man. And I love the fact that you pulled this into a personal experience. You know, that's what every music is for me and you, and films are for me and you. And that's why we love doing this show.
It's amazing.
You know, as a way to, you know, just kind of put out our thoughts and things. And we really appreciate everybody who tuned in tonight, commented and liked and subscribed if you did. Thanks. You know, we do this, you know, just two guys just shooting the shit about movies.
One thing really quick, and you know, it can't be said enough. You just said it there amazingly. We do this because it's about connections. You know, it's about sharing the things that we love and the things that we built, and we've got a lot of great stories that we're going to be sharing along the way. And I'm glad that we were able to do this tonight. It was another amazing show.
For sure. And with that, thanks everybody for checking us out. Be sure to follow us at the Show Pod on Twitter, and check out our website at thesadisticpenguinstudios.com, where we have all our blogs, and we have other shows like Getting Drafting Here, the great hookup on music with Tony, who's doing a great job every Wednesday night. And Getting Drafting Here is doing great drafts. So we actually have a good SNL episode coming up, where they're going to recast Star Wars with SNL characters or actors, which I think is going to be amazing. And the great Treasy E's going to be on that, as well as, I believe, the Baloney Man.
He sure is.
Of the Bum. So two good people who have always been supporters of us. And Brian does an amazing show for drafts, coming up with new ideas. So the man of many podcasts is going to do another draft. So be sure to listen out for that, and we'll be tweeting that out. And with that, thanks for sticking with us for a long night.
Oh, hold on a second here. We might have a little bit of an announcement. And not Larry.
Not Larry.
Which is definitely going to want to tune into that episode, because Larry is.
Not Larry. Quick story. So great job to my partner here on the Twitter, putting out polls every day. He did a poll for sequels in the 90s, and Not Larry commented saying, you guys left one out. And the one that he was obviously talking about was Terminator 2. So I responded, man, Young Guns 2 was great, but we only could pick 4 movies. To which Larry...
Hey, are you sure? Was he talking about Caddyshack 2?
I think he was...
came out 90s.
I think he's talking about...
Caddyshack.
Talking about Terminator 2. Oh, man, we're wrong. But I was talking about Young Guns 2. So...
No, yeah, you did, which was good. This is one thing about the polls that I want to say really quick, is that I'm trying to do 365 of them. So if I miss a movie, it's going to get in there. Don't worry. So, but yes.
No, great job by Tony and everybody who's followed us there. And keep us checking up on the At the Show Pod Twitter. You can find a lot of great movie conversation there. And also on Instagram, we post our stuff there as well. But with that, guys, thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll catch you next week. Deuces.
Thanks for listening to the At the Show podcast, a Sadistic Penguin Studios production.
Game over, man. It's game over. What the fuck are we gonna do now? What are we gonna do?
Maybe we could build a fire, sing a couple of songs, huh? Why don't we try that?